While he was born in Fargo, North Dakota, Jack Swagger grew up in the small city of Perry, Oklahoma. At only 5 years old, Swagger began wrestling and would continue to compete throughout his time in school. This led to him attending the University of Oklahoma, where he set the school's record for most pins in a single season with 30. Not only that, but he was also named All-American, a title that means you're one of the best athletes on your team. This is also how Jack got his nickname later on in WWE. Speaking of which, Jim Ross, who was the head of talent relations at the time, contacted Jack Swagger while Jack was a university student. After graduating, WWE offered Swagger a contract, which just so happened to be the same day Jack was supposed to start his job at a financial firm in Texas. As you can probably guess, Swagger decided to work for WWE instead. The All-American first went to WWE's development system, FCW, to learn their style of wrestling. He was a quick learner, and after 2 years there, Jack Swagger was ready to make his WWE debut. Looking a bit more naked than he would later, Swagger debuted on WWE's third brand, ECW. Not only was his appearance nothing fancy, but Jack's music was also pretty generic as well. Regardless, Jack Swagger dwarfed his opponent, a local competitor named Josh Daniels. The match kicked off with Jack picking up Daniels and throwing him onto the mat. Swagger then grabbed a hold of his opponent again, this time going down with him. Josh Daniels managed to touch the ropes, which prompted Swagger to give him a slap. The local competitor retaliated with a punch to the face, which enraged Jack Swagger, and the match started getting serious. The All-American began wearing his adversary down on the mat and eventually performed a sidewalk slam. Swagger then targeted Josh Daniels' back and inflicted even more damage. Finally, Jack Swagger hit the Blue Thunder Bomb and put the match away with a pinfall. This was a squash match, but it still felt underwhelming. Jack Swagger's appearance and entrance were not impressive. I also would have preferred if Swagger showcased a bit more of his wrestling background, since that was what made him stand out on the roster. There was room for improvement, but Jack Swagger's first match was fine, just a bit too average. A few weeks after his debut, Jack Swagger would attack a different local competitor after the man had just lost a match. Tommy Dreamer came to the guy's aid, only for Dreamer to get attacked by Swagger. This was the kickstart to a rivalry between the two. Swagger and Dreamer faced off in 3 matches, all of which the All-American won. During this time, Swagger would also update his attire and also got his iconic On Your Knees entrance music. Because of this success, Jack was named the #1 contender for the ECW Championship. He got his title match in January 2009 and was able to defeat the champion, Matt Hardy. This not only made Swagger a world champion, but he also did it in the same amount of time it took Brock Lesnar. Anyways, during his reign as champion, Swagger would suffer his first singles match defeat against Finlay when they fought in a non-title match. Swagger made up for that loss by beating the Irishman at the 2009 No Way Out pay-per-view. However, another challenger was just around the corner. Christian made his big return to WWE and immediately went after Jack. The two wrestled each other at Backlash, where the era of Swagger came to an end. The All-American would try a few times to reclaim the silver belt, but he had no luck. After that, Swagger was traded to Raw. His first rivalry was against MVP, which didn't work out too well, because Jack lost to him at SummerSlam. Following this, Swagger began fighting with The Miz and the United States Champion, Kofi Kingston. That rivalry also didn't pan out well for the former ECW champion, as he never won the title. While Jack Swagger's run on Raw started out poorly, things picked up in 2010. In March, Jack won a Money in the Bank qualifying match, allowing him to compete in the ladder match at WrestleMania 26. Despite the odds, Jack Swagger did it and became Mr. Money in the Bank. Riding his wave of momentum, Swagger cashed in days later on SmackDown, defeating Chris Jericho and becoming World Heavyweight Champion. Since the title was part of the SmackDown brand, Jack Swagger jumped over to the Blue Show as well. Swagger had a few successful title defenses against the likes of Edge, Chris Jericho, Randy Orton, and The Big Show, not all of which were clean, however. The All-American's tactics eventually caught up to him, and at the Fatal 4-Way pay-per-view, Swagger lost his crown to Rey Mysterio. Jack would try to win the championship back at the next pay-per-view, Money in the Bank, but he couldn't get the job done. For the remainder of 2010, Swagger wouldn't do too much of note. He competed as part of Team SmackDown at Bragging Rights, lost an Intercontinental Championship match at TLC, and also had an Eagle mascot for a short while. In February 2011, Jack Swagger was put back in the spotlight when he was announced as Michael Cole's trainer for Cole's match against Jerry Lawler at WrestleMania 27. This was a pretty bad feud, but Michael Cole did win at WrestleMania, and he and Swagger would win a tag team rematch at Extreme Rules. Their alliance ended soon after that when Michael Cole insulted Swagger. Later in the year, Jack Swagger tried to get Vickie Guerrero, who was managing the United States champion Dolph Ziggler, to manage him as well. Eventually, Guerrero agreed, and Swagger was part of the group. He helped Ziggler retain his US title, and the two would challenge for the Tag Team Championship, but were unsuccessful. However, once Ziggler lost the United States title, Jack Swagger swooped in and defeated Zack Ryder to win the belt. Unfortunately, this was one of the All-American's worst title reigns. It lasted less than 2 months, and he lost the title to Santino Marella. Things wouldn't get much better in the following weeks either. Swagger started losing more and more often, leading to internal fighting between him and Dolph Ziggler. Eventually, it came to a point where the two faced off in a one-on-one match, which Ziggler won. This also put an end to Jack's partnership with Dolph and Vickie. It kept getting worse and worse until Jack Swagger finally threw in the towel and said he was taking time off. After several months away, Jack Swagger returned to WWE in February 2013. About a week later, Jack Swagger would introduce Zeb Colter, who advocated anti-immigration beliefs that Swagger agreed with. This then created the "We the People" chant, and Colter and Swagger started calling themselves Real Americans. This actually led to backlash from members of the Republican political party. We'll talk more about that later. With a brand new attitude, Jack Swagger entered the Elimination Chamber and won, which earned him a shot at the World Heavyweight Championship at WrestleMania 29. The champion was Alberto Del Rio, and with Swagger's new persona and manager, this led to a lot of verbal attacks as well as physical ones in the weeks leading up to the show. Finally, WrestleMania came, but despite a dominant return to WWE, Jack couldn't do it, and failed to overthrow Del Rio. Swagger would get a few more opportunities at the championship, but nothing came of them. After that, Jack Swagger had to undergo surgery and took some time off. When he returned, Zeb Colter had aligned himself with Antonio Cesaro. This led to Swagger and Cesaro teaming up under the name The Real Americans. They spent the rest of 2013 and a bit of 2014 chasing after the Tag Team Championship, but despite multiple attempts, they were never successful. Their last time taken together was at WrestleMania 30, where they lost yet another Tag Team Championship match. Cesaro and Swagger started arguing, which led to the Swiss Superman attacking Jack. The Real American would get his revenge the next night on Raw by destroying the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal trophy Cesaro had won. This led to 4 singles matches and 1 triple threat that also involved Rob Van Dam, all of which Cesaro won. Jack Swagger and Zeb Colter followed that up with a feud with Adam Rose, which also saw the Real American lose every single match. However, things kind of picked up afterward. Jack Swagger would become a good guy and stood up to Rusev, who was disrespecting America. This created a series of matches that ran through the rest of 2014. The Real American fought Rusev on both TV and pay-per-view, and did manage to get 1 win via disqualification. However, every other match was won by Rusev, and the rivalry came to an end at TLC. During their feud though, Zeb Colter would be attacked by the Bulgarian Brute and disappeared from TV. Ironically, Jack Swagger sort of did the same thing. In 2015, the All-American was barely seen on Raw, SmackDown, or any of the pay-per-views, and almost exclusively appeared on Superstars and Main Event. Towards the end of the year, things did get interesting. Alberto Del Rio had recently returned to WWE with, surprisingly, Zeb Colter by his side. Swagger confronted Zeb, and in a complete role reversal, Jack Swagger was the hero and Del Rio was the villain. Even with this change, Jack Swagger still couldn't defeat Alberto and lost to him at TLC. On the plus side, at Tribute to the Troops, Jack reignited his rivalry with Rusev and became the only person in WWE to make the Bulgarian Brute tap out. Unfortunately, 2016 was another not-so-great year for the Real American. He appeared a bit more often, but wasn't part of any feuds or storylines. When the brand split came back in July, Jack Swagger was initially drafted to Raw, but was soon moved to SmackDown. He came face-to-face with Baron Corbin, which set up a match between them. During their fight, the All-American managed to lock in the Patriot Lock, which prompted Corbin to reach for the rope. The referee thought Baron Corbin was tapping out and awarded the victory to Jack Swagger. Since they had unfinished business, the Real American and the Lone Wolf faced off again at No Mercy. Corbin won that encounter, as well as their final match against each other on SmackDown. This wasn't Jack Swagger's last match, however. That would come a few weeks later. The November 2nd, 2016 episode of Main Event opened with a real American. Jack Swagger came marching towards the ring, looking more serious and more experienced than he did 8 years ago. His opponent was Simon Gotch, who was accompanied by his vaudevillain teammate Aiden English. Seconds after the bell rang, Swagger got Gotch on the ground. Jack then connected with a shoulder and a spinning takedown. Aiden English tried to help Simon Gotch, but Swagger was too fast. The match went to the outside, where English struck again, and this time, Simon Gotch got the All-American. The vaudevillain started twisting Jack Swagger's head and wore him down. Swagger did get to his feet, but Gotch then started throwing knees and punches and knocked the real American back down with a clothesline. Swagger still had plenty in the tank, and fought out of his opponent's hold and nailed him with body slams and a belly-to-belly suplex. Swagger then placed his hand over his heart and ran across the ring and hit the Swagger Bomb. That wasn't going to win the match, so Jack whipped out the Patriot Lock. Aiden English tried to make the save, but Jack wasn't having it. Simon Gotch almost stole the victory, but Jack denied him and used the Patriot Lock one last time to win the match. Honestly, for what it was alright. I think Aiden English helped keep it interesting, and it was kind of an exciting finish seeing Jack Swagger counter the roll-up and get the tap-out victory. Nothing special, of course, but a good match, and a solid way to go out. Afterward, Jack Swagger wouldn't be seen for months in WWE and eventually asked for his release, which was granted in March 2017. He spent the next few years working with smaller companies and even got into MMA. Then, on AEW Dynamite's premiere episode, Jack Swagger, using his real name, Jake Hager, made his All Elite Wrestling debut. Swagger's doing great, but about 10 years ago, he was part of a storyline that offended some people. To hear that story, watch the video on screen.